Hey everyone. Welcome to AfriHeart Stories, your go-to spot for African tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe and drop a comment. Now sit back and enjoy. It was a bustling Saturday morning at Ojuoi Market, and the sun hung low, threatening to bake the pavement by noon. Colorful umbrellas lined the narrow lanes as vendors shouted over one another, selling tomatoes, yams and spices in loud, overlapping symphonies. Ada Ora strutted between stalls with two of her co-workers, heels tapping like war drums on the concrete. She wore a wine-colored jumpsuit, a pair of oversized shades, and a smugness that drew stares, not of admiration but of discomfort. "Let me just quickly get those grapes for the fruit bowl," she said, waving her perfectly manicured fingers. "Bossman said he wanted healthy snacks during Monday's meeting, and you know who always delivers." "That's our executive assistant," her friend Toke laughed. "Your promotion is overdue, Abeg." Ada Ora smirked. "They already know I'm the backbone of the company. That new HR girl? She can't even find the conference room." As they turned toward a corner fruit stall, a sudden ripple in the crowd caused Ada Ora to stop. A frail old woman in mismatched ankara was crouched beside a fruit tray, reaching for a single grape that had rolled from Ada Ora's target basket. "Madam, get out of my way," Ada Ora barked. The woman didn't respond. She reached again, shaking slightly as her fingers brushed the grape. "Are you deaf?" Ada Ora snapped and, without thinking, kicked the small woven basket by the old woman's side. It rolled into the gutter, its few precious coins spilling into the mud. Gasps filled the air. The old woman didn't shout. She simply looked up at Ada Ora, eyes sunken yet clear, piercing through the arrogance like a silent blade. Then, with slow dignity, she rose to her feet, dusted her wrapper and began to walk away. "Oh please," Ada Ora scoffed. "Go and beg somewhere else. We're working people here, not charity." Toke looked uncomfortable. "Ada, maybe just let it go." "Let it go," Ada Ora hissed. "She embarrassed me in public. Imagine if a client saw me." What Ada Ora didn't notice was a man in a plain white shirt and jeans standing by the suya stall, his expression unreadable. He tapped a number into his phone and spoke quietly, "Sir, I think you need to see this." Later that afternoon, in a dimly lit room at the company's head office, Mr. Okoro placed a still image on the desk in front of his boss. The CEO, tall and reserved, leaned forward. "Is that her?" Mr. Okoro nodded. "Captured this morning. Ojuoi Market. Your mother." The CEO exhaled slowly, jaw tight. "And the woman yelling at her? She's one of ours. Ada Ora Uzoma. Executive assistant to the CFO." Silence stretched between them. "Get her file," the CEO finally said. "And call my mother." Back at the market, the old woman, Madame Onyeka, sat under a mango tree at the edge of the neighborhood, drinking water from a sachet. A little girl selling oranges approached her shyly. "Mama, are you okay? I saw what that lady did." Madame Onyeka smiled gently. "Thank you, my dear. I'm more than okay. That woman? She just showed the world who she truly is." Ada Ora returned home glowing from the attention she got earlier. Her social media post was already gathering comments. "Tough love is still love. Respect yourself in public spaces." She captioned it with a selfie and the hashtag no shame begging must stop. She didn't know that 2 stalls down, someone had recorded the entire incident. And that video was now circulating in an encrypted internal company group chat. And she certainly didn't know that the woman she humiliated wasn't a random beggar, but the mother of the most powerful man in her organization. By Monday morning, Ada Ora breezed into work with her signature bounce. Her heels clicked confidently along the tiled floor as she entered the main lobby of Olumo Capital. She nodded at the receptionist like royalty and marched into the executive wing. "Morning, Executive Barbie," Toke teased, walking past her with a grin. Ada Ora flipped her braids over her shoulder. "Please, I should be called Executive Backbone. Without me, this place would be buried in post-it notes and confusion." Toke laughed. "I still can't believe that drama at the market. The way you kicked that woman's basket, and you know they fear camera? She should fear shame." Ada Ora replied. "Imagine crawling at people's feet like that. I did her a favor, Jer. Maybe now she'll know where to sit." They entered the break room. 3 other staffers were already inside, sipping tea and scrolling their phones. Ada Ora leaned dramatically against the counter and launched into her story again, how the crazy beggar woman embarrassed her in front of everyone and how she had to set boundaries. She laughed while recounting how the basket flew into the gutter. Her co-workers gave polite chuckles, but their eyes exchanged subtle glances. A senior executive, Mr. Kelvin, walked in mid-laugh. He paused at the doorway and looked directly at Adaora. I hope all that confidence translates into your work, he said, voice flat. Adaora's smile wavered. Of course, sir. Always. As he walked out, Toke whispered, maybe tone it down a little, Ada? People are watching. Let them watch, Adaora muttered. I'm not ashamed. But something in the room had shifted. The atmosphere wasn't admiration, it was caution. Later that afternoon, Adaora returned to her desk to find an email waiting. Subject, HR meeting, urgent. Time, 3 p.m. Location, boardroom 2. Her brows furrowed. Promotion talk already? She smirked. She clicked her pen and began mentally planning her negotiation strategy. Salary raise? Check. Parking slot? Definitely. Corner office? Oh yes. At 2:58 p.m., she strutted toward boardroom 2. Her heels echoed again, this time slower, heavier. She entered to find 3 people already seated. The HR manager, Mr. Okoro, the COO, and a woman she didn't recognize, an older woman in a regal scarf, seated quietly, her back straight. Please have a seat, Miss Adaora, said the HR manager flatly. Sure, Adaora replied, taking a seat and offering a fake smile glance at the elderly woman. She looked vaguely familiar. The room was silent for a moment. Mr. Okoro finally spoke. Do you know who this woman is? Adaora blinked. I don't think we've met. The woman turned her head slowly and fixed her with a piercing gaze. You know me, she said. Her voice was calm but heavy. You shouted at me. You kicked my basket. You laughed as I walked away. Adaora's face drained of color. What, wait, the beggar? She's not a beggar, Mr. Okoro cut in sharply. This is Madame Onyeka. She is the CEO's mother. A silence fell like thunder. Adaora's lips trembled. This must be a mistake. No, Madame Onyeka replied, the mistake was yours. 2 days before the market incident, Mr. Okoro had his doubts about Adaora. She had come far, no doubt, a bright intern turned personal assistant with flair. But her ego? It had swollen like bad bread. She had no patience for junior staff, rolled her eyes at janitors, and barely greeted the drivers. He had warned the CEO, Chief Ease, months ago. Sir, there's talent. And there's character. Adaora has the former. I'm not sure she has the latter. Chief Ease had simply nodded. That's why we test in silence. When the call came in about the incident at the market, Mr. Okoro didn't hesitate. He drove straight to Madame Onyeka's modest apartment that evening. She sat outside with a wrapper tied around her chest, sipping kunu from a tin cup. You didn't stop her? She asked after he told her the story. No, he replied. You always say the truth reveals itself better than any confrontation. She smiled. Then let it be so. He nodded slowly. What would you like us to do? Let her explain herself. If she can. He returned to the office and pulled Adaora's file. Her record was polished. Impressive. But pride, he knew, often hid behind excellence. Now they just needed to watch how she handled the truth. Most staff knew the CEO had a mother who lived abroad, or was in retirement. They were wrong. Madame Onyeka had been the spine behind her son's rise. She believed power should never lose touch with humility. So after retiring as a public school teacher, she chose not to live in luxury, but among real people. She believed in testing those who served her son. I don't care how fast they can type, she used to say. I care how they treat a janitor. Once every few months she went undercover, at hospitals, markets, bus parks. Staff never recognized her. She blended in. But her mind took notes. When she met Adaora that Saturday morning, she was simply walking through the market to buy okra. I dropped my money, she later told her son, and when I reached for it, she kicked my basket. Chief Ease had listened quietly. And what did you say? Nothing. I let her show who she is. And what do you want done? Madame Onyeka stared at the window. Let her tell us who she thinks she is. Adaora sat frozen in her chair. Madame Onyeka hadn't raised her voice. She didn't need to. Her calm presence made the silence deafening. The HR manager cleared her throat. Miss Adaora, we've reviewed reports and footage submitted regarding an incident in the public market this past weekend. Footage? Adaora's voice cracked. Yes, Mr. Okoro replied. A nearby shop captured your behavior. Would you like to see it? Adaora stammered. I didn't know who she was. Is that what matters? Madame Onyeka asked, finally leaning forward. If I were truly a beggar, would it have been okay to treat me like I wasn't human? Adaora swallowed. I was just embarrassed. People were watching. You cared about their eyes, Madame Monica replied, but not my dignity. Mr. Okoro passed a manila folder across the table. You've been under review for some time, Adaora. You've grown in efficiency, but declined in compassion. Staff complaints. Disregard for cleaners. Sharp tones with subordinates. I didn't know anyone had issues. You never asked, Madame Monica cut in. I work hard, Adaora whispered. I've earned my place here. No one is questioning your intelligence, Mr. Okoro said gently. But we are questioning your character. Tears welled in Adaora's eyes. Go home, HR said. We'll be in touch by the end of the week. Adaora rose slowly. Her heels no longer clicked like thunder. They barely made a sound as she walked out the room, hollow and ashamed. While Adaora sat stunned at home that night, others in the company continued their work as usual, except now quiet murmurs followed her name. Meanwhile, in the CEO's private office, Madame Monica sat with her son, watching clips from different cameras. Months of footage from market visits and office observations. In one, a junior admin, Lami, spotted her struggling with her shopping bag and immediately offered help. Mama, sit here please, Lami said. Let me carry it to the car park. In another, a driver named Tolu gave her a bottle of water on a hot afternoon. Even if no one sees this kindness, he smiled, God sees. She had written their names in a small notebook. There was a stark contrast between their actions and Adaora's. And the contrast spoke volumes. She was efficient, Madame Monica admitted, but she treated me like I was beneath her. Not once did she ask if I needed help. She didn't even look at me. Just shouted. Chief Ease tapped his pen. What are you suggesting? She's not beyond redemption, his mother replied. But she needs fire. Not comfort. Let her walk a mile in other people's shoes. And the promotion? Give it to someone who chose kindness when no one was watching. He nodded. By Wednesday the office buzzed with whispers. Though no official memo had gone out, everyone had noticed Adaora's absence, and the older woman who had visited the executive floor. Did you hear? That woman was the CEO's mother, someone whispered near the elevators. No wonder Adaora hasn't posted since Monday. I heard she's in trouble, another added. Toke sat at her desk, nervously chewing her lip. She regretted laughing at the market story. Even if she hadn't said anything cruel herself, she had allowed it to happen. Meanwhile, Adaora stared blankly at the ceiling in her apartment. Her mother knocked lightly and stepped in. You've barely eaten, she said, placing a tray down. Adaora didn't respond. I raised you to work hard, her mother continued. But I also taught you kindness. When did you stop seeing people? I don't know, Adaora choked. Everything became about appearances. Titles. Recognition. And what has it brought you? Adaora couldn't answer. Her phone buzzed. A message from HR. We'll need you back at 10 a.m. on Friday for final deliberation. Attendance is mandatory. Adaora stared at the mirror. Puffy eyes. Pale lips. Her usual confident glow replaced by uncertainty. She called her friend Ife. I messed up, she said. But maybe I can fix it. How? Apologize. Visit her. Publicly maybe. Do a little charity while I'm at it. Ife was silent for a beat. You mean, stage it? Not like fake, Adaora replied. Just, curate it. I want to be seen making things right. Ife sighed. Adaora, this can't be about saving face. Look, I'm not proud of what I did, but if this helps me keep my job, then I have to try something. That afternoon she dressed in plain clothes, jeans, sneakers, a clean polo. She even bought bags of rice, soap, and small gifts. She called ahead and said she'd be doing a surprise visit to honor a woman who taught her something important. She hoped someone would record it, post it, maybe tag the company. At 3 p.m. she arrived at Madame Monica's modest neighborhood with a small group in tow. Mama, Adaora greeted. I came to say I'm sorry. Madame Monica was seated on a bench, knitting quietly. She looked up and gave a slow nod. Oh, that's kind of you. As Adaora handed over the bags, she smiled stiffly for a few photos. The entire visit lasted 10 minutes. But what she didn't know, what no one told her, was that Madame Monica had arranged hidden cameras to capture the visit herself. And she'd seen everything. 2 days later, Madame Monica invited Adaora back, alone. You said you wanted to apologize, she said over the phone. Come tomorrow at noon. I could use some help around the house. Adaora hesitated. Sure. Absolutely, Ma. She arrived in more casual clothes this time, ready to play along. Inside the modest home, the fan creaked gently above. Madame Monica lay on a couch, hand pressed to her head. "I've had a headache since morning," she said softly. "Can you help prepare tea?" Edaora nodded. She made the tea, after struggling to find the kettle, boiling water, and adding too much sugar. Then she returned to the living room and handed it over. The old woman sipped, made a face but said nothing. "Can I go now?" Edaora asked after 30 minutes of small talk. "No. I'd appreciate your help cleaning the floor. It's been dusty." Edaora blinked. "Sorry? The floor?" "Yes," Madame Monica said, still reclined. "Broom's in the corner." With a stiff smile, Edaora fetched the broom. She swept reluctantly, missing corners, sighing often, and checking her phone every 5 minutes. She didn't know that every move was being recorded again. And this time, Madame Monica didn't say a word about it. But she had seen everything she needed. Back at Alumo Capital's executive wing, the atmosphere was tense. Mr. Okoro walked into the CEO's office with a tablet in hand. "She came," he said. Chief Ease looked up. "Alone?" "Yes, just her." "But," he tapped the screen and played the footage. "See for yourself." The room fell silent as they watched Edaora sweep the floor with a frown, sighing, impatient, checking her phone more often than she cleaned. Madame Monica was quiet in the footage, observing, listening, offering no correction. "She wasn't there to learn," Mr. Okoro said. "She was there to perform." The CEO leaned back slowly. This wasn't an apology. It was a performance. She thought she could control the optics. Chief Ease folded his arms. "Let's send a message then." Mr. Okoro raised a brow. "Termination." "No," the CEO said. "That's too easy. Let her sit with her consequences. Let her understand why." He paused, then added, "Let's reassign her, before everyone." "Publicly?" Chief Ease nodded. "Yes, publicly. This company isn't just built on numbers and strategy. It's built on people. Let them see that we value character." Mr. Okoro nodded solemnly. "She'll never forget it." Friday morning. Edaora arrived at the office in a modest dress and low heels. Her makeup was lighter than usual. The once booming confidence had thinned into a quiet uncertainty. She passed coworkers who only offered nods. No greetings. No smiles. The air was thick with curiosity. At 11 a.m., a company-wide staff meeting was called in the central briefing room. Most assumed it was about new projects or leadership changes. But as HR, Mr. Okoro, and the CEO walked in with Madame Monica, whispers ignited like sparks in dry grass. The CEO took the podium. "Thank you all for gathering," he began. "Today's meeting is not about metrics. It's about values." Edaora sat near the back, clutching her notepad. Her eyes widened when Madame Monica stepped forward. "This woman beside me," the CEO continued, "has spent the past few months observing how we treat people, especially those we think don't matter." Gasps spread through the crowd. "Yes, my mother," he confirmed. "Dressed as a beggar. A market vendor. A bystander. Many of you passed her without thought. Some helped her. And one humiliated her." He looked directly at Edaora. "Edaora Uzoma, please stand." Her knees wobbled as she rose. "You will no longer serve as executive assistant," the CEO announced. "Effective immediately, your post is reassigned due to internal concerns and a breach of the values we hold." Murmurs rippled. Edaora froze. "You are not dismissed," he continued. "But you will spend the next 4 weeks assisting in community outreach and social welfare administration, under a team you once overlooked." Edaora's face flushed. The public shame was louder than any slap. And Madame Monica? She simply watched. That evening, Edaora sat at the kitchen table, untouched food in front of her. Her mother placed a bowl of warm soup beside her, then took the seat opposite. "So, they stripped you of your title?" Edaora nodded slowly. And what?" Edaora snapped. "I was humiliated, Mama. In front of the whole staff." Her mother raised an eyebrow. "But were you lied about?" Edaora blinked. Her mother leaned in. "Did they twist your words? Did they fabricate what you did?" "No," Edaora whispered. "But—" "No buts," her mother interrupted. "You forgot yourself. You forgot how I raised you. You forgot how we used to share one room with 5 people and help others who had even less." Tears formed in Edaora's eyes. "You thought the suit made you better. You thought big grammar erased your beginnings." Her mother's voice softened. "Humility isn't weakness, Edaora. It's wisdom. I didn't mean to be that kind of person. But you became her anyway, her mother said. Now God is giving you a chance to unbecome her. Adaora's tears rolled freely now. Her mother reached out and held her hand. Don't waste it. On Monday, Adaora stood outside a small community shelter with a clipboard in her hand. She was now reporting to Ifioma, a former receptionist turned outreach coordinator. Ready to help? Ifioma asked. Adaora nodded. Good. You'll be in charge of registering new applicants for food support. Those benches are yours. The sun was relentless. Sweat pooled under Adaora's blouse. There was no AC. No assistance. No catered tea breaks. Her first applicant was an old woman missing 2 front teeth. She smiled wide anyway. Thank you for doing this, my daughter, the woman said. Adaora smiled back, something genuine beginning to form. As the hours passed, she heard heartbreaking stories. A single father raising 5 kids on a tailor's income. A teenage girl who dropped out to care for her sick grandmother. And slowly, Adaora began to see what she hadn't in years: people. Not clients. Not obstacles. Not statistics. People. That afternoon, she helped serve jollof rice in the food line. You sure this is Adaora the Ice Queen? One staffer joked. She laughed. Maybe I melted. For the first time in weeks, the sound of her own laughter didn't feel like armor. It felt like healing. By the second week, Adaora no longer checked her phone while working. She no longer avoided eye contact or rushed conversations. On Wednesday, she arrived early to mop the entrance before guests arrived. As she carried the bucket back, she paused. There, seated on a bench near the wall, was Madame Onyeka. She wore a plain wrapper and blouse, same as the day at the market. No security. No fanfare. Adaora froze. Madame Onyeka smiled gently. Don't stop now. I'm just here to volunteer. Adaora set the bucket down and approached slowly. I didn't know you'd come here. You didn't know a lot of things, Madame Onyeka said, eyes kind but firm. Adaora nodded. That day at your house. I was pretending. I was still saving face. I know. I thought if I did enough, maybe you'd speak up for me. I don't reward pretense, she said. But growth? That I honor. Adaora bit her lip. Am I still pretending? Only you can answer that. Adaora lowered her gaze. I'm trying to change. Madame Onyeka looked around the shelter, watching Adaora's name scribbled on several forms, her sweat-soaked scarf, her clean hands. You're not trying, she said. You've started. Then, without another word, she joined the soup-serving table. Just another hand among many. And for the first time, Adaora didn't feel lesser. She felt human. The next morning, Adaora woke up early, not out of obligation, but from something she hadn't felt in weeks: peace. There was no audience to impress. No performance to stage. No social media post to curate. For the first time, she dressed not for perception but for purpose. She arrived at the shelter before anyone else and walked straight into the pantry. She began sorting cans, organizing shelves, and quietly humming to herself. Then around noon, she slipped out the side entrance and walked 6 blocks to a familiar bungalow. She didn't carry rice. She didn't carry soap. She carried only herself. When Madame Onyeka answered the door, she looked surprised. I wasn't expecting visitors today, she said. I know, Adaora replied quietly. But I came, as me. No phone. No photographer. No agenda. Madame Onyeka studied her carefully. I came to say I'm sorry, Adaora continued, her voice trembling. Not for losing my job. Not for what people are saying. But for how I treated you. For how I've treated so many. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I looked at you that day and saw shame when I should have seen strength. I was cruel. And not because I didn't know better, but because I chose pride. There was silence. Then Adaora slowly knelt. I'm not asking for anything, she whispered. I just wanted to say those words, to mean them. For a long time, Madame Onyeka said nothing. Then she knelt too, lifting Adaora up by the arms. Apologies aren't words, she said softly. They're decisions. And today you made one. Adaora nodded, wiping her tears. I don't know who I'm becoming, she admitted. Someone new, the old woman replied. And that's a good start. That evening, the CEO sat in his office, reviewing reports when his intercom buzzed. It's your mother, sir, the receptionist said. Put her through. He leaned back as her warm voice filled the room. She came today, Madame Onyeka began. His fingers paused on the edge of a document. Was it another show? No. Just her. She didn't bring gifts. She didn't take photos. She knelt in front of me and cried. Not out of fear, but remorse. The CEO closed his eyes. Did she ask for her job back? No. He opened them again. Then what did she ask for? Nothing, his mother replied. She just wanted to be heard. A long silence passed between them. I watched her today, she continued. She scrubbed floors without complaint. She laughed with the women in the kitchen. She didn't wear pride, she wore grace. Quiet grace. He exhaled slowly. So you think she's learning? I don't think, Madame Onyeka said. I see it. The CEO nodded. I'm not bringing her back to the executive suite. She doesn't need it, she replied. But there's a branch opening in Lekki. Community-driven. Focused on outreach and employee wellness. Give her something that forces her to keep listening. He smiled faintly. You're always ahead of me. I raised you, she said. I taught you that character can't be built in air conditioning. All right, Mama, he chuckled. I'll call HR. Before she hung up, she added, and son, she won't need a title to prove herself this time. The following week, the entire office buzzed with anticipation. An internal memo had teased a big announcement. One of the long-awaited promotions would be revealed at that morning's all-staff meeting. Adaora didn't attend. She was at the shelter, folding uniforms with an older woman and sharing a joke about soap that wouldn't lather. But her name was still on people's minds. Maybe they're finally bringing her back, Toke whispered to a colleague as staff filled the auditorium. She's been working at that community place for a month now. Word is, even Madame Onyeka smiled at her last week. Mr. Okoro stepped up to the podium with a confident smile. We've all heard whispers, he began, and yes, today, we are officially announcing the new assistant manager for staff development and outreach. He paused. Some eyes darted toward the back, expecting Adaora to walk in. But Mr. Okoro continued, this promotion goes to someone who showed kindness when no one was watching. Someone who welcomed a stranger in the heat of day and offered help without expectation. He turned. Congratulations, Lami Bako. Gasp. Applause. Lami, the soft-spoken admin, looked stunned. She stood slowly, hands over her mouth. As she walked to the stage, some staff clapped with surprise, others with admiration. Even Toke nodded. She deserves it. Meanwhile, at the shelter, Adaora's phone buzzed. A group message showed Lami's promotion with smiling emojis. Adaora stared at the photo for a long moment. Then she smiled and clapped. Alone. No envy. Just something new. Peace. It was a cool Thursday morning, the kind that draped Lagos in a soft breeze and mild sun. Adaora sat by the shelter's window, watching a group of teenage boys sweeping the compound while laughing about something she couldn't hear. She was writing a short report on the shelter's food stock for the week when her phone rang. A known number. She almost ignored it, but curiosity pulled her finger to the screen. Hello? Miss Adaora Uzoma? A calm voice said on the other end. Yes. This is Mrs. Balaji from Human Resources, Olyamo Capital. Adaora sat up straighter, heart instantly thudding against her ribs. Yes, I remember you. We'd like to invite you for a conversation regarding a potential placement. It's for a new branch in Lekki, scheduled to launch next month. Adaora blinked. Placement? Yes. You've been recommended for the role of community strategy lead. She froze. I thought I was no longer in consideration for anything. There are second chances, Mrs. Balaji said gently. If they're earned. Adaora swallowed hard. The CEO would like to speak with you in person. Tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. Can you make it? Yes, Adaora replied, voice shaky. I'll be there. When the call ended, she sat still for several minutes. Her breath returned slowly as the realization sunk in, someone had been watching. And they'd seen her change. The next morning, Adaora stood in front of the mirror in her bedroom, buttoning a plain cream blouse over brown slacks. Nothing flashy. No power heels. Just herself. As she caught her reflection, a memory flashed. The day she kicked that basket in the market. She remembered how tall she'd felt, how small she'd made someone else feel. Now, as she looked at her own reflection, she didn't feel smaller. She felt lighter. When she arrived at Olyamo Capital, the security guard who once greeted her with forced politeness now gave her a warm nod. Welcome, Miss Adaora. She smiled. Thank you. Inside the building, staff turned subtly as she walked past. But this time, their gazes held something new. Not pity. Not scorn. Something more like respect. In the executive lounge, Mr. Okoro greeted her with a handshake. Morning, Adaora. Morning, sir. He gestured toward a conference room. "He's waiting for you." She took a breath and stepped in. Chief Ease sat alone at the table, a glass of water in front of him. He looked up and studied her silently for a few seconds. "Have a seat." She sat, clasping her hands in her lap. "I've watched your journey," he began. "Not through reports. Through people." Adeora nodded but said nothing. "My mother told me about your second visit, how you came without cameras, without gifts. She saw your change. And more importantly, you didn't ask her for anything." "I didn't think I deserved anything," Adeora said quietly. "You didn't," he replied plainly. "But you earned the right to start again." She blinked. "Is that what this is? A reset?" "No," he said. "It's a promotion. Just not the kind you once dreamed of." He slid a file toward her. "You'll lead community engagement at our Lekki branch. The team is small. The work is human-centered. You'll report to a new director, Lami Bako." Adeora smiled. "Your title won't impress many. Your office will be basic. But the people? They'll need you." She nodded. "That's more than enough." Chief Ease leaned back. "It's not punishment. It's purpose. Can you handle that?" "I can," she said, voice firm. "And I want to." He nodded slowly, then stood. She rose with him. "One more thing," he added as they shook hands. "When the cameras start rolling again, and they will, remember what you were without them." Adeora smiled. "Yes, sir. I won't forget." Outside, she exited the building into the Lagos sun, her shadow long and steady. She didn't rush. She didn't need to. For the first time, Adeora didn't feel like she was stepping into a job. She was stepping into who she was becoming. The grand opening of Olumo Capital's Lekki Outreach branch was modest, yet elegant. Rows of white chairs were lined under a canopy trimmed with green ribbon. Staff wore branded Ankara uniforms, and a long buffet table displayed simple local dishes: jollof rice, puff-puffs, moi-moi, all sourced from community vendors. Children from the local school performed a welcome song under the proud eyes of their teachers. This wasn't the usual corporate launch with champagne and chandeliers. This was different. It was intentional. And seated quietly in the front row beside the CEO and a few community leaders, was Adeora Uzoma, hair pulled back in a simple bun, wearing a navy blue dress and flat shoes. No heels. No flash. Just presence. Next to her sat Madame Onyeka, dressed in a light wrapper and scarf, fanning herself gently. Though many didn't recognize her as the CEO's mother, the way Adeora leaned toward her showed respect deeper than hierarchy. "I still can't believe I'm here," Adeora whispered. Madame Onyeka turned her head. "You're not here because you begged to be," she replied. "You're here because you became ready." Adeora smiled softly. The CEO walked to the podium. Applause rose and quieted. "This branch," he began, "isn't just about outreach. It's about people. It's about how we treat each other when no one is watching." He glanced at Adeora briefly. "We built this center to restore dignity to communities. But what we found along the way was that dignity begins in the mirror." He paused, then added, "Sometimes falling is not failure, it's an invitation to rise the right way." The audience nodded. Cameras flashed. But Adeora didn't look for the spotlight. After the speech, he turned toward her and gestured. She stood. Tentatively at first. Then with the quiet confidence of someone who had been broken and rebuilt. She walked to the mic, heart thudding, not with fear but with meaning. "Good morning," she began. "I used to think leadership was about titles, control, image. But I've learned, it's about service." She paused, her voice steady. "Months ago I made a terrible mistake. I disrespected someone I should have protected. Not because I didn't know better, but because I didn't care to be better. I thought power meant being untouchable." A murmur swept through the crowd. But I was wrong. Power is the ability to lift others, not step over them. Her voice softened. "Today I stand not as a former executive assistant. Not even as a team lead. I stand as a woman who was humbled, refined, and trusted with a second chance." She looked at the crowd, then straight at Madame Onyeka. "And to the woman who saw through me and still believed I could change, thank you." The audience burst into applause. Not for a comeback. Not for a performance. For transformation. After the event, guests mingled while Adeora walked around the center. Volunteers showed off the new counseling room, the stocked pantry, and the youth training lab. A group of girls in matching school uniforms gathered around her. "Auntie Adeora," one asked shyly, "how did you get this big job?" Adeora smiled. "I didn't chase it. I became it." They looked confused. She chuckled and crouched down to their level. I didn't become a leader by being the loudest or the fanciest. I became one by learning to listen even when it hurt. They nodded slowly, taking in every word. As they skipped off, Madame Onyeka approached from behind. They'll remember that, she said. I hope they do. The older woman touched her shoulder. You're no longer the woman who kicked my basket. Edaora turned. No, ma. And I'll never be her again. You'll make mistakes still, Madame Onyeka warned gently. But you'll carry them differently. Edaora nodded. With humility. They both looked out across the compound. Children playing, staff laughing, community members receiving food tokens and job info sheets. It wasn't glamorous, but it was beautiful. That evening, as the crowd thinned and chairs were stacked, Edaora stayed behind, helping fold tablecloths and sweep confetti from the ground. No one asked her to. No one was filming. She simply did. As the last rays of sun dipped behind the buildings, the CEO walked over. You've come a long way, he said. Thank you for trusting me with this. I didn't, he said plainly. She blinked. My mother did. Edaora nodded. And I won't waste it. He looked at her for a moment longer. We've added you to the company's development advisory board. Her mouth fell open. Not for your resume, he continued, but for your insight. She placed a hand over her chest. Thank you, sir. As he walked away, she stood alone for a while, just her and the sunset. No spotlight. No applause. Just peace. And purpose. Final scene. 1 week later. In a small market across town, a young woman in a tight blouse bumped into an elderly woman selling okra. Ugh, these people again, she muttered, brushing off her designer purse. She started to walk away, but then paused as a hand touched her arm. Wait. It was Edaora, dressed simply, carrying her own shopping basket. Excuse me? The girl asked. Edaora bent down, picked up the spilled okra, and handed them back to the old woman with a smile. Sorry, ma. Are you okay? The old woman nodded, grateful. Edaora turned to the girl. I was once where you are. Thinking respect was optional. It's not. The girl frowned. Do I know you? Edaora just smiled. No. But one day you might. She walked away, her shadow long, her lesson sown. And behind her, a woman watched quietly, recording not with a phone but with memory. Liked it? Thumbs up, subscribe and join the AfriHeart fam. Your support fuels our stories. Until next time.